Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. I'm going to be doing another scary paranormal story from Reddit. So if you would like to hear that, please stay tuned. Also, I just filmed this makeup look, so if you want to see that, I will also link that video to this one. Alright, without further ado, I'm going to get into the story. And this is from Reddit No Sleep, Living with the Dead. And this is by the writer Sparks92. When I was young, I started seeing ghosts. They would come to me in the middle of the night, and back then it used to scare me. As I got older, I grew numb to their presence, to the point I sometimes mistook the living for the dead. I became more aware. I realized that once mistook for a curse really was a blessing in a way. I spent years neglecting them, but now I embrace their presence fully. I'm able to help people communicate with their loved ones who haunt them, most of the time because of unfinished business. Most of my clients are surprised when they find out that a lot of ghosts don't know that they're actually dead. Most of them are stuck in continuous loops of events from their living lives. It's my job to help find their way out of the loop and into the afterlife. I know what you're probably thinking by now, and that this is a load of crap and that there is no such thing as ghosts. But the truth is, the world is full of them, and what makes less acceptable about the paranormal is because of what you see on TV. Yeah, Hollywood gets some right, but most of it is just dramatized in order to gain some cheap jump scares. The first part of my job is finding out what is causing the haunting. Majority of my cases thus far into my career have been caused by haunted items. Sometimes when a person who passed isn't ready to let go of their living life, they attach to a personal item. A locket, a music box, a guitar, hell, I even had one spirit attach itself to a toothbrush. Then there are full-blown hauntings, when some fragment of the person is left behind. The more unaware they are that they are dead, the stronger they appear. As they slowly realize that they're dead and make peace with it, they begin to go into a fade, until the spirit is fully gone from this world. A few weeks ago, while working a case in British Columbia, I came in contact with a force. Unlike anything I've ever felt or seen before. I don't normally like to talk about my work, but I will make an exception for this one. As always, the names, towns, and places will be left out or changed due to confidentiality agreements. However, the events I'm about to tell you are entirely true. I had a call from a woman on behalf of her father who was convinced that his wife's spirit was still in their home. She told me that he felt like she was trying to communicate with him, but he never understood what it was that she was trying to say, so I agreed to make the 4-hour drive to see if I could help. When I arrived to the house, it was just like any other ordinary home, a 2-bedroom bungalow in a quiet neighborhood. I was greeted by Peter and his daughter Nicole, who I had spoken to on the phone. As I walked up their front door, Peter was happy to see me, but the look on Nicole's face was uninviting. Peter showed me around the house, making me feel like I was at home. He showed me their room and how he still had his wife's clothes hanging in the closet. He told me he couldn't throw them out because he never wanted to forget the way she smelled. Oh, that's really sad. This is common. People tend to hang on to material things for as long as they can. And I don't blame them. Most people say this first step is getting rid of it all. All I can say is F the first step. I was then taken to the living room. Peter told me that this is where he sees his wife Sarah almost every night. He said he can see her sitting in her rocking chair in the corner, rocking back and forward, looking out the window like she used to when she was alive. He said she turns her head and smiles at him, and then she's gone. His daughter, on the other hand, tells me later when Peter is in the other room that I'm wasting my time because there's no such thing as ghosts. I looked at her and tell her that if I didn't believe in ghosts, I wouldn't be here right now, and that maybe she should have an open mind and listen to her father. It was around 7 in the evening. Nicole had cooked us supper, and I was helping her clean up the dishes. She told me she was soon heading home for the night, and that if we needed any help, she would be a phone call away. She wanted to stay the night because she didn't want to leave her father alone with a stranger. And I can't blame her. Peter, though, insisted that she go home, and he would be fine alone with me. I started to set up a few pieces of equipment around the house. The setup included a few EVP, electronic voice phenomenon recorders, around various parts of the house. EVP is one of my favorite pieces of equipment, and in my opinion, one of the most reliables. I then set up 2 full spectrum cameras around the house just in case Sarah wanted to make herself seen. I skipped setting up motion detectors and stuff because of the house size and because they aren't that dependable. Peter and I sat on the front porch for a bit, drinking tea and talking about his wife. He told me so much about her, and I could tell from the pain in his voice that he missed her dearly. I wanted to reassure him that I know there are people out there who would play on his emotion and con him, but I'm the real deal. I believed everything he told me, from the cold spots in the house, the missing items, and even when he saw Sarah in the rocking chair. It was getting late, and Peter was ready to call it a day. He told me to help myself to anything in the house. That's what I liked about him from the start. He treated me like someone he knew his entire life. He told me I didn't have to sleep on the couch and to use the guest room. I told him I was fine on the couch. I wanted to be close to the area with the most activity. So I made up a bed on the couch and called it a night as well. It was dead of the night, and I woke up to the sound of the rocking chair moving on the hardwood floor. I sat up in the couch, and I could see her there in the corner of the room, sitting in the rocking chair, looking out the front window, Sarah. She rocked back and forward. I walked over to her and knelt down beside the window. I looked at her until she noticed me. When she did finally notice me, she stopped rocking. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Don't trust him." I was taken back by her comment and how vague it was. I asked her who not to trust. She just looked at me and put her finger to her lips. Before I could ask her any more questions, she stood up, looked down at me one more time, and vanished. The next morning, I told Peter that I saw Sarah. I told him what she said and what it meant. Peter told me that she was probably referring to Roger, their neighbor. He said that Sarah and Roger never did see eye to eye. There was always friction between both of them. Years ago, Roger used to take care of foster kids. One day, Sarah noticed that one of the little girls in his care had bruises on her arms. So Sarah did what any concerned would do and called social services on Roger. When social services came to take the girl into their protection, Roger knew it was Sarah who called them. For months, he would do things to freak Sarah out. He used to call here all hours of the night and just breathe on the other end. She couldn't prove it was him, but she knew it was. A few weeks later, Sarah took another step forward to protect herself and call the cops on him to get a restraining order. I wanted to go over there and beat the out of him, but she told me that it was between him and her for me to stay out of it. Two of didn't speak for years. She would always tell me not to trust him. It was midday by the time Nicole showed up. She asked me how our night went, and I told her about what happened. She smirked on her face, but she just nodded. I told her what her father told me about Roger. She screwed up her face when I told her this, but she didn't say anything else. Something about the entire situation seemed off to me. I didn't bring my concerns up to Peter because I didn't know how he would react. My instincts told me that something just didn't add up. Nighttime came fast, and it was already dark out. Nicole denied to stay with us tonight because I was planning on leaving first thing in the morning. She didn't like to leave her father alone in the house, she told. She stayed in the guest room, and I slept on the couch like the previous night. That night, I was awakened by the same sound as the night before, the rocking chair moving on the hardwood floor. Once again, I sat up. This time, however, Sarah wasn't looking out the window. She was looking at me. Before I could stand up, she came towards me, screaming. She got right in my face, screamed louder and louder. Then she stopped, looked me dead in the eyes, same as the previous night. Only this time, she told me to look in the basement. I went down into the damp basement, and I felt around for a light. It was dark, and I couldn't see a hand before me. I finally found a light switch. When I turned on the light, I didn't know what to expect. When the room lit up, I was sort of let down. The basement looked like any other basement. Shelves along the walls for storage, a washer, dryer on the far wall. There was nothing unusual about the room. It was just another room. I went to go back upstairs, but as I did, my foot caught the floor, causing me to fall flat on my face. When I went up to get up, Sarah's ghost was standing there pointing at that section of the floor I just tripped on. It looked like there was a concrete floor poured over the top of another concrete floor. And she was standing there. All she said was, "We are down there." She started screaming, and once again she vanished. I made my way back up the stairs, and when I closed the door, Nicole was waiting for me. I asked her what she was doing up, and she told me she heard me go downstairs. She asked me what I was doing in the basement, and I told her that I was testing for cold spots. I didn't know what Sarah meant, and I wasn't ready to share it. I told her it was a dead end, and that I was going back to bed. Something inside me told me to get the F out of this house. I grabbed a few of my things and decided the rest was expendable. I made it out into the driveway and I heard Peter yelling at me from the house. I turned around and told him I would be back in the morning, and I kept running to the car. When I was down the street, I pulled over and called the cops. I met the officer back at the house, told him that I had reasons to believe someone was buried in the basement. The officer asked me how I knew Nicole. I told the cops that I was hired by her father, who was convinced that his house was haunted, and that I drove all the way here to check it out. The officer looked at me with a puzzled look on his face. Then he asked me how long have I been in town for. I told him that I arrived 2 days ago, and that I'd been staying with Peter at his house. This caused the officer to look even more concerned. I was then told that Peter had been dead for years, and that Nicole was the only one living in that house. The officer went to handcuff me. Who could blame him? I seemed like someone on some heavy drugs. When he went to put me in the back of the cruiser, Nicole came out to ask what was going on. The officer caught her on everything. She told the cop that this was all a misunderstanding. She told him that she hired me to come to check out the house because she expected that her parents' spirits were still haunting the house. What? I have to admit, even though I didn't see this coming, all the signs were there from the start, but I failed to notice them. I guess I just got complacent with the dead. It turns out that both Peter and Sarah were missing over 10 years ago without any traces or explanations. Nicole was unsatisfied with the missing persons reports and that the cops hadn't turned up any clues. I then learned that Nicole was the foster kid that lived next door with Roger years ago. Whoa, talk about plot twist. Once social services had taken her out of his custody, Sarah had applied to become a foster parent. She wanted Nicole to come live with them, so no one could hurt her ever again. This is what really caused the friction between her parents and Roger. Nicole grew up living with Peter and Sarah, and she started to call them mom and dad. She never had to go back into foster system ever again. They gave her a life no one else could have given her, and even paid her way through college. One weekend she came home to visit her parents and found the house was empty. All their clothes and belongings were in the house, but they were gone. When Nicole finished up college, she moved back into their home, and she told me that she could still feel them in the house. A few paranormal investigators and psychics visited the home, and all of them told her stuff she knew she wasn't true until she met me. The basement of the house was dug up, and the bodies of Peter and Sarah were found in the concrete. The concrete preserved their bodies well enough that the coroner's office determined that both of them were shot in the back of their heads and buried in the concrete. The police found evidence at the scene that convicts Roger of first-degree murder. He was now in his late 60s, but he would spend the rest of his life in prison. When asked why he did it, he told the police he had never got over the grudge he had against Sarah. One night he broke into their house. When he went into the living room, he found Sarah in her rocking chair. She never heard him enter the home. He snuck up behind her, shot her in the back of the head. He then found Peter in the basement, who had the basement floor torn up due to plumbing issues. Peter hadn't heard the gunshot upstairs due to the jackhammer and earplugs. So like Sarah, he snuck up behind him unknowingly and shot him in the head. Then tore up the basement floor, offered the perfect spot to dispose of their bodies. Nicole was shaken when she learned the truth. Deep inside, she knew her parents were dead, but once she knew their bodies had been underneath her the entire time, she was heartbroken. Her only regret was that she wasn't there for them like they were for her. Peter and Sarah were standing behind Nicole and she was tearing up. I told her that they were beside her and that they told her she couldn't blame herself for the monster next door. Nicole took comfort in their words, and just as quick as they appeared, they both went into the fade. During my car ride home, I couldn't stop thinking about Peter and Sarah. How could someone be so evil to kill two people as kind as them? It goes to show that this isn't the skeletons in the closet we have to worry about, or creatures under our beds. It's the monsters next door who fool us the most. Wow, that is a crazy plot twist. That is really sad as well, too. Like, I can't imagine. That's really sad. But also really terrifying. be safe, and I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. And if you did, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're not already, please subscribe to my channel. And I will be back with more of these videos, and I will also link the playlist to my other scary stories at the end of this video. Okay guys, bye!